I had a question. Well, actually I had two. So the first one is, what is mindfulness of the body? Again, so like, I don't know anything about the Buddhism. I heard about it, heard about suttas, heard about Buddha saying, mindfulness of the body is the way to enlightenment, pretty much. So how do you do it? Or not do it? Or what do you do in order to practice mindfulness of the body?
First thing, restraint, bodily action.
So if somebody does keep the precepts, restrains their bodily actions that would otherwise be rooted in greed, aversion, distraction, how do you do the actual mindfulness then? What is that? How would you describe it? Like in your own terms, how do you describe it to yourself, basically?
Seeing the body as present, no matter what I do, in a sense, or no matter whether I want it or not. And whatever I do or can do is on account of the body being there beforehand, so to say. Like the body is, whatever I can engage in, the body is there, or has to be there for any kind of engagement.
Right, so then would you say that the mindfulness of the body, the practicing mindfulness of the body begins with the correct information as to what that practice is and what to look for? Or could you just do the mindfulness of the body?
No, I think there needs to be some idea, I guess.
Some idea, some view, some knowledge.
Yes.
Of the right kind. No, definitely, yeah. So it's what you just described all kind of comes from the knowledge of what to look for. And the body is already there, you find it there, all that. So it's these knowledges, the contexts, that's how you begin the mindfulness of the body. That's how you can ask the right questions. They would then establish the mind in that corrected recollection. So it's like, oh, what is my body posture now, for example? You don't need to answer it. It's enough for you to ask it. The answer is known, because the body is already there in that posture. That's the point here. And that's it. Now don't overdo that, because anybody can do this in a way. But if your view that precedes the practice of mindfulness is on the level of attending to the body in order for it to be there, means you will overlook this knowledge that is already there.
Yeah, because it comes before your attention.
What comes before your attention?
The body.
How?
It's a
how can you know that without attending it?
Discern it as being present.
But that's attending it. You have to attend something in order to discern it. So yes, it comes before, but not as a matter of fact that we can just state, oh, it comes before, okay, sure, yeah. It doesn't, then it does then, depends. You have to attend it. It's just where you put the emphasis on. Do you put it on the knowledge that this body that you're attending has already been sitting like that, or standing like that, enduring like that? Or are you putting the emphasis on you attending it as sitting like that, and so on? And it sounds maybe a small thing, but it's actually a completely different direction of practice. Yeah. So the mindfulness of the body, obviously, if one is sense restrained, guards the sense doors, keeps the virtue, starts with the knowledge of what the body is. It doesn't matter if, but that doesn't feel palpable enough. Yeah, that's fine. It will become palpable enough. It doesn't feel palpable enough because the threshold of what you can palpate is on the level of what I can attend and feel and sensate and so on. But all of that, all of those particular specific ways of attending to your body are possible because the body is already there. So the knowledge of the body already there enduring, regardless of how you attend it and how you feel about it, is how you establish the mindfulness of the body. And that's why you establish that mindfulness to the extent necessary the final knowledge will be, the dispassion will be the result of it. Because nothing can then pervert that order. No matter where your attention goes, beautiful object, ugly object, usually provoking of lust or aversion, that peripheral knowledge of the body enduring that image, enduring palpable image now, indirect so to speak, cannot be forgotten, cannot be stepped outside of, cannot be put second anymore. And then there is no basis upon which lust can arise.
Exactly, because for action that's rooted in greed, aversion, delusion, this has to be forgotten in a sense, or ignored.
Exactly, and by ignoring it, you put the habit of the wrong order first. And then, then any attempt at the mindfulness, through like regaining it through the direct mindfulness of the body, through like a direct attending and reminding yourself that you're already here and now, and where else can you be? All of those attempts would be basically just rooted in, again, trying to get rid of the now discomfort through your attending and replacing it with something more comfortable. But the way to get rid of it is to stop acting out of it, and then to recognize that which is necessary basis for comfort or discomfort that your mind might be exposed to. And that necessary basis is this physical body there. And that can never be directly attended to. It can be known as such. And we go back onto the sense basis that we discussed before. So, anything to add on this before I go on?
Because you speak about knowing it, and that's something I think that one could easily overlook. The difference between knowing something and, let's say, perceiving something. And that's even, in a way, something that I would say you could use as a way to kind of access the right type of discernment of the body as such, as in what do I actually know, not only what do I
momentarily see or perceive
or something. What do I know in the sense that, even if everybody else around here could tell me, no, you're standing up. You're standing outside there. And I would still have to know that I'm sitting, that the body is sitting. That it's not only on the level of, oh no, I think I'm here and everybody else says otherwise. It's something I can't, it's nothing to do with what I think or what I prefer or whether I want to or not.
Yeah. But the significance is in the fact that it precedes me, so that it's like inescapable that, I can be seated, standing, walking, lying down. I can't not be any of those things. It's this understanding that this inescapability of being in a posture, that is the emphasis, because that will be what uproots greed, hatred and delusion. That is that is where this sort of significance is evoked, in that understanding. It's not in this I'm sitting, I'm standing. That's
it's not the specific. It's not about the specific, specific thing or the.
Well, that's when that's exactly what you just said. I was going to say that. So that's important bit. Like you can recollect the knowledge of your body posture. I am sitting, but then you can overdo it, over attend it. So but that doesn't feel enough. This knowledge that this body is seated in the background there of whatever I'm occupied with. That doesn't feel, as I said, palpable enough. So what do you do then? Oh, let me be mindful and body sweep this seating body. It's like, so you're putting your attention on the specific parts of the body first, while the knowledge of the body being there, a necessary basis for specific attentions, you put that second. Because you prioritize your craving, your lack of satisfaction and so on.
And the body sweeping and everything is what I am doing, so I'm putting...
So it's kind of, again, coming out of that assumed sense of control, however subtle. So the point is then to refrain from overdoing it as well. So don't underdo it. Completely be unaware of your posture, but don't overdo it either. It's not better. More is not always better. And that's like playing the strings, the lute instrument the Buddha was talking about. It can be too tight and the sound won't, it will be horrible. Can be too loose, horrible. So you have to get it right. And it does come to that okay, so to some extent I have to attend. I attend to the knowledge, I attend to the question, I attend to revoking, recollecting that body that endures there. But now, do I refrain from getting into the specifics of my attention because it just feels like I need to do it, have it more solid for me to kind of be mindful of it? And then that becomes like overshooting the mark. So then you won't be able to see the body as the necessary basis that you're confined within some posture at any given time. It will become an abstraction that then you're trying to paste through your attending to the sensations and then interpreting and each and everything else through what you attended to as a secondary kind of afterthought. And that's just taking you away from that middle way, which is a way of kind of peripheral recognition of what's there, but not overly attended to, for lack of a better word, I suppose.
And with this analogy of the string, like the music or the sweet spot, I don't know, is dispassion or coming out of greed, hatred, and delusion. That not as an abstract idea. Yeah. It is the.
So the more familiar you become with the right tune, the easier will be to re-establish it if you lose it and protect it once you re-establish it. Up until that's the only tune you have. And that's when you go beyond tuning, i.e. you don't even need the right view anymore, as an arahant goes beyond the views. And then all you have is the basis of dispassion, cooling down, unperversion. And that's nibbana.
That is also the characteristic of that the right tune, or as you put it, the fact that it really doesn't depend on any concept or set of ideas or something, as in, for example, you can, I don't know, wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, all of these concepts and all this Dhamma makes no difference and be completely in doubt about everything, but then you still find you have to breathe in. Like, you can't, it's relentless. You cannot escape it. And there's something to recognize in that.
You can't get rid of it. You cannot have it. All you can do is stop resisting that, what you said before, the fatiga of it, the resistance, the natural discomfort of it. Stop resisting that, you will stop maintaining the basis for wanting sensuality. And you will stop maintaining the basis for not wanting pain either. Because it's all rooted in trying to avoid what's unavoidable. The body that's already there. So, for as long as you relate to it with a degree of passion, to that extent, again, you will be tormented by it. So it does come down to learning how to find that. So recognize that you cannot not attend things, but learn how to attend without losing the sight of the context, of the background, of the peripheral, which is what yoniso is, which is what we discussed before. So, so since we mentioned the right tune, how do you then get the right view? How a person who keeps the Vinaya or precepts, guards the sense doors, has the information, the suttas, listens to the talks, practices mindfulness the best they can, in the sense of, they don't try to avoid things through a meditation technique. They don't mystify it either. How can they develop the right view? What to do? How to develop the right view?
Well, I suppose the first thing is to acknowledge that one doesn't have right view. So one finds oneself in this position of ignorance that is beginningless. So to think that I can somehow imagine the right view from my current position of ignorance is a full start. You're undermining your ability to develop the right view.
So then, to recognize that you don't have the right view, and to even more importantly, recognize that if you don't have the right view, nothing you do but takes in the right view.
And
So it's top to bottom. You're enclosed within your wrong view.
and
Needs to be taken like that.
therefore there is some kind of contradiction. Present in my experience now. That there is some kind of in my thoughts or my experience that there is there is a lack of understanding.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, if you admit that you don't have the right view, then so there is lack of understanding. But what I'm also trying to say is that it's important to really admit that you don't have the right view top to bottom, because if you leave that kind of ambiguous, it's like, I don't have the right view, you could still cultivate the attitude as if I don't have the right view, but the stuff I'm doing surely must be partaking to the right view and getting me closer to it. You don't know even that. You don't know if it's taking you closer or further away from it, because that's the whole point of not having the right view, means not having the right reference. In other words, you can't trust what you're doing. Even if it feels good or right, fine. Don't use the criteria of how it feels for whether it's right or wrong. Use the information that you're gathering on how what the right view is supposed to be, what the right view is supposed to be resulting, what the practice along the right lines should be resulting in. Not how it feels, but whether it's increasing the lust or decreasing it, increasing aversion or decreasing it. Are you able to suffer amidst suffering as much as before, or amidst the stuff that used to make you suffer a lot, you're not as overwhelmed?
Yeah, I was going to say, you also, because you can kind of just take that as I don't have the right view, I must sort of doubt everything. But there has to be some criteria that you can even verify within your own experience as having the wrong view, to see, this means I have the wrong view. The reason, that's why I can suffer. That's therefore a direct criteria even to be able to see. That's not depending on what anybody else tells you or what what you hear in the videos or from anywhere. That this criteria means that there is wrong view there, which also means then you have to admit that you suffer. It's recognize when you are affected by things.
And what is a necessary basis for people being able to honestly, transparently, authentically admit that they suffer and that they're within suffering, which is kind of a prerequisite to be able to then relate to the practice of the right view correctly. So what is the prerequisite what's a necessary basis for people to be able to admit that correctly? Because people might admit that but still kind of move on, as in, but see, what I'm doing is helping, I find this helpful, I find this calming, I find all this. What all those things have in common if you haven't admitted truly?
Trying to manage.
Exactly, management. So you have to give up the management of suffering.
So wanting to change.
Acting out of it, wanting to change, thinking you can deal with it. You need to fully feel enclosed within the existing dukkha of any kind without giving in to, I'll deal with this. That's the prerequisite for then seeing the craving as the presently enduring basis for the presently enduring suffering. For as long as you're still holding on a thread of, I can do this, I can calm nostril sensations, this, when it's like this, when it's a subha, I look at subha, when it's subha, I look at it. All of these managements are still the reason why you won't have the right view, because you're not giving up, you're dealing with the pain. So in other words, you're not uprooting it.
So in a sense, more specifically, one needs to admit that he doesn't know why he suffers.
Yes, one needs to admit then he doesn't know why he suffers, and then one needs to restrain himself from managing the suffering, because that's a habit. It's not anymore even on the level of why I do this, it's more like I just do this. And then the Dhamma, the practice, the talks, the suttas became the extension of your management. So people usually manage suffering through distraction, sensuality, acting out of ill will. As the Buddha said, Puthujjana does not know any other escape from the arisen painful feeling other than seeking pleasure in sense objects. Now somebody says, that's bad, I'll practice meditation and spirituality and the Dhamma and the suttas, but they do it with the same attitude. So they turn to it to get rid of the pain, to manage the pain. And that won't be the Dhamma, even if it's all they do is stuff the sutta say. Because they're doing it on the basis of their aversion, on the basis of their resistance, on the basis of their craving. So then a person can say, okay, so I was given in sensuality, now I'm just sort of managing the suffering. I need to really refrain myself from giving into pressure to manage, explain, psychologize, practice out, calm through my meditation, whatever else, of the arisen pressure in my mind. I need to learn how to endure it without craving against it. And when the craving against it ceases, the pain of it ceases, while the thing still remains. So look, amidst suffering, amidst the same thing that pressures you, the suffering has ceased, because the craving against it has ceased. Not the thing, it's still there. So it's like, oh, I got rid of it. I got rid of the problem of craving. You don't need to get rid of the things you never did, including your own thoughts. They were not the issue.
Just to back up slightly, when you were talking about the needing to restrain any kind of management, I think part of being able to even to do that is also even just to, you really need to take responsibility for the management that you are doing, in the sense that you can do it because you think so-and-so told you that it was the right way, or you read it there. You need to really know that you're the one doing it, and you are fully responsible for any view about the practice of Dhamma that you're holding. As in, regardless of where it comes from or on what basis you hold it, there's no particular reason to hold any view about what the Dhamma is or what the practice is. You're choosing to do it. So only by taking responsibility for it fully can you then, see that, oh, I'm doing this out of craving, or I'm doing it just because I'm doing it, so therefore you can restrain yourself. But if you're not taking responsibility for that from the beginning,
it's just going to perpetuate itself.
Yeah,
your
no
management
way.
attempts and
Yeah.
avoidance and so on.
There's no way to restrain it properly, or to even realize that you're doing it in order to restrain it. And that can be like on the basis of faith, on the basis of what you interpret the text, whatever, but you have to realize that you're the one having the faith, you're the one interpreting the text, you're the one, there's nothing that makes you do it.
Yeah. So practically then, how do you, or if somebody can think of some examples, how do you refrain from management? Or what happens if you refrain from management? Say, sight. Say you see something that would be like lust provoking, or provoking of greed. And then you didn't act out of it, obviously. You refuse to look, so you restrain your senses. And now there's that pressure of, so what do you do then?
Continue to not act out of it. As in, continue to not actually... But
so, how long? How does that work?
Nothing else.
So just not act out of it? Can you do anything?
No.
Can you go and sit somewhere else? Read a book?
Not on the basis of trying to distract yourself from it.
Read a book. But can you go and sit somewhere else? Say if that thing is there still nearby. Is it okay if I just go to another room?
See, it depends what the question is based on. Can I do this or can I do that? Is like all anybody would be asking those kind of questions from is because I feel like I need to do something.
Yeah, so you start like that.
Mm-hmm.
You will.
Mm-hmm.
You will be craving against it, no doubt. But how far can you go? how far can you allow yourself to go? So you're not trying to, like, yeah, pressure is unpleasant and craving against it is already there because you're suffering, obviously. So you cannot just not do that. Eventually you can. So now I'm trying to just clarify or talk about what is the practical extent of what I can do on account of pressure that I'm affected mistakenly through my wrong views, through my craving. Can I go to another room or to another place? Can I then read something? Can I then go to sleep? Can I then go for a walk? What can I do? To what extent can I do stuff?
I would say yes, as long
To
as
what?
it's not.
To what? All
Going
of it?
to
Or
an-
some of it? Or none of it?
Some of it. That's
Which part would you say?
you could
yes
go. How to say? If that sight is still present, you could move to another room where that sight is not present. If that is not done, like we said, as trying to manage the problem.
No.
But
It is like you just can't handle it.
Yeah.
Is it okay to go to another room or to another place if you can't handle the sight that are frequently present?
Yes.
Can you, once you've gone there, can you read a book or meditate, watch your nostrils, feel the sensations to calm down? Can you do that?
No, not with with that intention.
So why the first one yes, why the second one no? Why can you go to another room? Because you're acting out of craving. But why can't you just watch your nostrils and calm down? Because you're acting out of craving. What's the difference between the two?
I would say the first, like if something is overwhelming to the point where it might make you act out of it, it's better to remove yourself and then, let's say, think about it.
And the second one?
Is basically acting out of it already.
Exactly. Yeah. So the first one has the imminent danger of losing the sense restraint, like physically. The second one doesn't. So there's no more danger of you acting towards or going after or staring or looking again at the sight of provoking of lust when you're in your room. Now you just don't want to bear the discomfort of it. So you watch your nostrils to calm or read a book or go to sleep or chant or whatever you do. See, now that's overdoing it. Because there is no more imminent danger. Yeah. So when there is imminent danger, avoid it. Yes, it's rooted in craving, but at least you won't undermine yourself to a significant degree. Like lose the physical restraint, verbal restraint, and so on. But now when you're in your room, you are safe there from the imminent danger, so to speak. Okay, now if you do more, it's going to just perpetuate management for the sake of it. So that's how you know where to draw a line. So am I here, right here? Like if I just for a second and my eyes lost the restraint. No, there is nothing to look here. Okay, so now the pain of it has to be endured on the level of the mind, that pressure. As you said initially, for as long as it takes. That's kind of the point. And initially it might take quite long. Same thing. Same thing can last for 4 or 5 days. Just be on your mind. Same thing. And you don't care. In a sense, like, for as long as it lasts, you're going to endure it. That's the point. Because sometimes people feel like, okay, well, I endured this for a week now. It's time to... No. It's never time to step into the domain that doesn't belong to you. Because the moment you do, you're back into Mara's domain, Mara's control. Oh, but this is going to last forever, yeah. Mara's domain will be Mara's domain forever. That's the whole point. And that was never the problem. So the problem is that you're just pressured to grab hook onto the bait because you can't bear the presence of it, the pressure of it. So if there is the imminent danger to losing the sense restraint, compromising virtue by body, speech, physically, right here, then yes, of course, avoid that. Wisely avoid it. But if there isn't one, then you have to endure it. Because otherwise it's just going to be self-perpetuating management and trying to get it, and basically fueling your craving because of which you suffer and you're trying to manage. You don't manage things, or you don't need to manage things because they bother you. You manage things because you crave against them. And your management against them is another form of craving. So your management will just result in more need for management. And same like when people, they get ill or something, it's like, it's unpleasant, it's pressuring my mind, but do we go to see the doctor? That's acting out of craving. Yes, it is. But is it against the precepts? No. If you're cured, can you then practice better? Yeah. If you don't cure yourself, could you die? Yeah. So then go to the doctor. Act out of craving, take responsibility for that, because you're not compromising sense restraint in precepts. Yes, on the mental level you gave in, just so that then you can practice further. But that doesn't mean now that when there is no illness, no imminent danger or pressure or threat to your sense restraint, you're sitting alone in your room and any discomfort, you still feel justified in managing it mentally. No. Now that's overdoing it. So it's like certain things the Buddha says should be wisely avoided. Like the wild dog, an elephant, the charcoal pit. Don't just, out of craving. If I turn away from a wild elephant, that will be rooted in craving. I'm attached to my life. So then I'll just go and let the elephant kill me. It was like, yeah, but you are still factually not enlightened, so you're going to die and lose the opportunity to practice. So use some common sense, basically. Avoid the elephant, admit that you acted out of craving and weakness, and then practice before the next elephant comes, before the next illness comes, before the next overwhelming sight, sound, smell, taste, touch comes.
So the criteria of basically practice is the criteria for like action. So let's say I have a duty imposed on me by the community that I live in. I could just not do it or refuse to do it, but that would be like this example of going to the doctor. You go there to cure your disease so you can practice. It's less hassle to fulfill your duty. So you can practice.
But there is also a line now, see, where that how far that duty goes.
Exactly.
Like somebody can say, okay, it's fine to go to the doctor, and then just adopt a view that whenever something bothers you, you're justified to go to a doctor.
Yeah.
And equally, somebody says, so I must perform a duty. Well, yeah, but it depends on the duties as well.
So that requires discernment.
Do you live in the community where duties imposed on you are of a more or less practical kind and necessity? Or are they just random sort of decisions by random people that have nothing to do with any kind of practical benefit? It was just to fulfill time or ideas or fantasies or whatever else. So is your daily duty revolves around, sweeping, preparing food, repairing, maintenance, so then you can live in a degree of kind of not too uncomfortable and so on? Or is your duty revolving around spending hours of just, chatting to people, dusting shrines, polishing statues and stuff that has no practical value whatsoever? Yet it's equally time consuming and requiring company and so on. So there is a different value to duties as well. Now, doesn't mean any duty should be performed. Like, is performing, like in the suttas when they talk about performing duty towards your teacher, so helping him because he's teaching you, so because you're already a burden, so you take him on as a burden. So just cleaning around teacher's kuti and so on, in return, you hear the Dhamma, you get your questions answered. That's a fair deal. Or you don't even know what your teacher understands or not. You just took him out of the institutional value of nisaya that monks must do, and then you're full-on 24/7 servant just for the sake of it. It's like, that's not wise, isn't it? So just, again, common sense. Is there a practical need for this great duty or project that community does? Is it necessary in that sense? Or is it just because somebody, I like it, I would like this. Can you please, all of you, spend 10 hours a day doing, building this thing for me because I like it? Because I would like to have it. Because I like all the ideas that revolve around it. Or do you like, no, spend 10 hours fixing the water pipe. Because if you don't do it, we won't have water. And then things will get worse in other ways, get sick, and then we all have to go to the doctors and so on. So it's like, there is, again, common sense that would denominate, is this worth doing, wasting my time with? Because both are, equally can become distracting and wasting time. But yes, some of it is necessary to some extent. But when people accept the duty at face value, means, so any context, any discernment of practical necessity, need, benefit is gone. It's just done because it's a duty determined by the higher authority of the tradition, community, senior monk, or whatever else. And that's certainly not the duty you should be following. So then you need to change community. Or go on your own if you know what you're doing. Or try and talk to the community and see if it can be sort of fixed. Because sometimes maybe people lose perspective, but then they can be reminded, and then things can kind of be restored in a practical order. So it's some duty, but if it cannot be restored, if the duty is taken, the value of duty is taken at the face value, you must perform it, don't ask any questions, that's the tradition, that's the ajahn, that's our routine, keep doing this for the sake of doing it, there is no discussion there, so you should not live there if you want to practice for the right view. So as I said in other talks, it's always just like, again, am I doing too much? Is this just practical questions? Ask yourself, how much time I spend in solitude during the day? How much time I spend in company? How much of that company time is due to my own choices and intentions and volunteering and jumping up at the opportunity? How much is because it was duty imposed on me, unavoidable? And once you clarify how much is on you, how much is not on you, then look at how much is not on you and whether that's a problem or not. Because sometimes people, it's just so much, because they're going around doing everything. Nobody asked them to. So it's like, there is a degree of personal responsibility there. So you have to first recognize that, and then see that what's left, but it's still like for 6-7 hours I have to be, okay, now that's too much. So then you can try and rectify that one way or the other. Because solitude is necessary. We started this, how do you get the right view? Well, virtue, seeing the danger in the slightest fault, slightest acting out, sense restraint. So, it's just a look, it's just a sound. No, it's important to sustain the value of no, I mustn't give in to this. Endure the pressures result with no, don't give in to the management of it. Use common sense. Manage if you need to go to a doctor or go to a more quiet place in a room and so on, but not for the sake of avoiding things that you know you have to deal with internally. And then seclusion. You need to be dwelling in seclusion until the peripheral, the signs of the mind become apparent. Where the mind is, the state of mind enduring on its own for what it is. Because without being alone, that won't be seen. Because all you see is yourself through others and others through your sense of self, whatever way perversion is there, of order. But in solitude, that gets unperverted. With these bases of gradual training set up, the solitude will unpervert you putting your sense of self first, and then you just see your mind there first, body there first, any of these right perceptions there first, and then your sense of self enclosed within that, which means it's not your own anymore. So then your atta becomes anatta. Atta still there, just now seen as second, and if atta is second, it's not atta anymore. It's that which doesn't belong to you. And that would kind of complete the third fetter. They will be abandoned with the right view through these gradual practices which are described in different way, but that's exactly what we were describing.
So I could again just back up slightly, even just because that very first thing even that you said, so being restrained and seeing the danger in the slightest fault, because even that, for example, you should not necessarily take for granted from the beginning what you think a slightest fault is. As in, somebody might say, okay, I know that these precepts and so on, I'm supposed to be content with that, but that's not enough for me. I also need to do add various other kind of rules or whatever in order to not feel guilty or something.
Well,
so you should,
I think that's so. Everybody will start with, okay, everything is a fault and so on. You don't necessarily know. So common sense again. So danger in the slightest fault means the fault in regard to the precepts. So if the precept says, don't lie. Okay, so slightest fault regarding the principle of lying, not telling the truth, I should avoid. don't steal, don't kill, 8 precepts, don't eat in the afternoon, and so on. Okay, so the slightest fault around that. But of course, the mind will then make fault out of things that are not necessarily faults, or try to invent its own rules. But that's when you reckon, okay, so but why am I doing this now?
Exactly.
So you're going to have the pain of precepts, the restraint, the pain that's revealed on account of it. And then exactly, you can then double down on precepts and rules and imposing more observances and stuff that you do, because you want to manage the pain that there isn't of it. Oh, see, it says don't eat in the afternoon. And this might be allowable, maybe it isn't. I ate it, I'm doubtful now. Then you kind of find out that actually was alright. In certain instances you can have certain types of food, even as our Vinaya allows. But the doubt, the pain of it, the guilt is still there. So what do you do now? Well, if you are honest, transparent, if you're, as I said, covering all the bases, such as, okay, this is now an arisen pressure that's uncomfortable, but there is no more threat. I'm not eating food now. There is no food. There is no temptation. There is none of that. Yet I'm trying to get rid of it. So I'm giving into the management. And usually what people do when they don't want to bear that doubt, the discomfort of it, okay, so it doesn't matter that it's allowable in certain cases. The Buddha himself allowed have juice or something if there is a physical need for it, there's illness and so on. No, I will never walk near the fridge again. I was like, yeah, but where is now that decision, determination? It's rooted to you because you want to prevent the pressure from arising, which means you still hold the view that the pressure and the pain was on the level of the food and your senses, and it wasn't.
And you're already pressured there.
And you're already pressured. Now you're going to be twice as pressured because now you expanded the basis that you must avoid. There was never the problem to begin with. So yeah, that's Silabbata Paramasa in the nutshell, where people take on the virtue, duty, and then it starts including everything and nothing, all for the sake of not even allowing doubt and uncomfortable states of mind to arise on the level of the mind. It's like, no. The precepts are about the physical behavior, verbal behavior. Means it's supposed to arise on the level of the mind, the pressure, the doubt. You know what you're not going to do, so now you need to understand this on the level of the mind. But no, I'll just do more. I'll just introduce 3 times more rules and create new rules and new way, the way we walk and talk and turn around, everything, just so that I can micromanage preemptively these states. But then you basically, as I said, you just increased the number of things now that can cause the same doubt. Because initially it was just, don't eat solid food, staple food in the afternoon. But now it's, I walk near the fridge, but I decided I'll never do it. It was a rule that I broke. Now I feel guilty, I feel doubtful, why did I do it?
How thick is this juice?
Yeah.
Is it stable?
So now you go down the rabbit hole and it's endless. And that's exactly when you become very neurotic and divorced from reality. Whereby precepts and sensory study was initially supposed to create these states of mind, and then you, through enduring them rightly, you get to see where the problem is, but you never took responsibility for that, and you think precepts and this was just supposed to prevent all these things from arising. And that's like when everything becomes an issue. Then like it's not enough for me anymore to double down and create new rules. I need to do for all of you. Because you're not doing these little observances that I do. Well, see, my mind is now full of doubt because it means I don't have to do them. So now that's a problem. Now I'm going to make an issue and try and get you to do it, and you to do it, and you to do it. Why? Oh, well, because...
Yeah, but what's clear, what you said the other day, that creating all these boundaries so that you don't get affected makes you more exposed.
To the boundaries.
And more exposed and more exposed. And
Yeah,
it's the very thing you're trying not to.
Yeah.
You're trying to protect yourself.
Oh, yeah, no, you said that.
Yeah.
Or I said it. Or I said it, but you put it in different words. You put yourself at the front line.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
By trying to create a buffer zone, so you're not affected, you end up being there with, maintaining the buffer zone, so even more things affect you.
Yeah.
But in reality, the Vinaya, guarding the precepts, guarding of the sense doors, and if you take responsibility for the mental states that arise on account of it, and not try to manage them and get rid of them, that is the buffer zone. That's where the confidence will come from. Because you know what you're not doing, you know what you will not do, everything else doesn't matter. Oh, that's actually quite easy. And that's exactly what the Buddha said there were few rules, but some monks find them too many already. And he said, Master God, there's just too much. All these, I can't keep it in my mind. You say, okay, well, keep these 3 ones. Don't do anything that's rooted in greed, aversion, delusion. Yeah, okay, that's clear enough. So stay on that. For most people, vastly kind of ambiguous level of don't do anything, greed, aversion, delusion, I can't bear it, tell me something more specific. But for him, it was more than enough. Specific enough. Greed, aversion, delusion. If that's present, I won't do it.
Yeah, but that was because he was a noble disciple. So he saw that directly for himself.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're not, as I said, you need some definition, and that's why the Buddha did give the definition of 8 precepts. Fault, obvious, common sense fault within that. Technically, I'm not lying, but you're lying. But you're kind of not quite doing it so that you can say you didn't break the precept. So that would constitute a fault. You can say, okay, so seeing the danger in the slightest fault. It's a slight fault. It's not fully against the precepts. But is it a fault? Is it a bit against? Yes, so it's a bit against it, so it's a bit of a fault. Slightest fault. So keeping the precepts, seeing the danger in the slightest fault in regard to the precepts, guard your sense doors. That's it. Moderate in eating, of course, sure. Solitude. And within that, your need, your habit, no matter how deeply embedded it was before, to manage what is a mental state, can be sort of dampened and eventually seen through. And then you recognize where the problem was. Your own craving, not the mental states.
So when we're not acting in this managing way, he's already putting into question the wrong view, so to say, and the beliefs of where.
Well, it's certainly
suffering
not feeding them further.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because that's, as the Buddha said in one of, I don't know, the letters, he says the whole point of the Dhamma is not to help you manage unpleasant sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, memories, and help you deal with it. No, it's supposed to uproot your entire experience as a whole. All of it. Nothing. There's no, it helps me with this and it's helpful at this time or at this occasion or... No. It doesn't deal with the specific experiences. It uproots experience. Bhava has ceased. Existence has ceased for a mind that's completely free from passion and enlightened. So if existence has ceased, nothing more specific within that existence can bother you, can be an issue. But if you refuse to give up the view of justification to deal with things that bother you, internally, externally, maybe I'm restrained, but I'm managing, I'm practicing concentration, I'm doing this, I have more observances, I have little routines. No, that's still not the Dhamma. Because because you need to give up that view of management in order to basically force yourself to look at it on the level of existence. And that's the level where things can be uprooted.